Welcome to the channel, Research Diary. Here we will share the most amazing and inexplicable stories that happen to ordinary people, but at the same time went beyond the usual understanding of reality. We will share with you the most mysterious and inexplicable stories that change the way we see the world. Each story is unique and filled with an atmosphere of mystery. We will try to explore each story by analyzing details and looking at possible explanations. Exploring the Matrix failure. Stories about events that happen to people but are not supposed to happen in the real world. For example, when people see themselves in situations they have already experienced but with some changes.
My story began when I was in 6th grade, and I had to go to school, which was 2.5 kilometers away from home. It was a winter morning, and we were walking along the road, 4 of us classmates. On the way, we passed a house where an elderly grandmother lived, a hunchbacked one. And not far from her house, there was a birch tree that stood out in the midst of winter with its greenness. We approached the birch tree, discussing school matters. But as we approached the tree, something strange happened. We stopped and felt afraid. The birch stood green, although snow covered the ground around it. We decided to go home, and on our return we were forbidden to watch cartoons, which was considered the biggest punishment at that time. The next day we went to school again, and we saw that the birch tree was covered with snow, as it should be in winter. This story left an indelible mark in my memory, and I still remember it, even though I am now 61 years old. But what happened then? That question remains open. The story starts with the preparations for my recent wedding. I noticed that I didn't like the belt my mother-in-law had chosen, so I decided to buy her a new, more stylish one. On the wedding day, I saw that she still wore the old belt, which was black with a rubber band that didn't match her beige-colored dress. I was a little upset about it, but I tried not to make a big deal of it, thinking that nothing was going to dampen the mood on such an important day. 10 days after the wedding, I looked at the wedding photos and saw that my mother-in-law was still wearing the belt I had bought her. I asked her why she preferred the old belt, and she admitted that she did it intentionally. My mother-in-law admitted that it was her attempt to defend her position, and she wanted to demonstrate that she had not caved in to criticism. I remember her black wide belt at the whole wedding, how she was adjusting it, and then bam, and in the pictures, that thin one in the color of the dress. When I was about 7 or 8 years old, I went to the health clinic with my mother one day, and we were waiting our turn. I saw a phone booth that looked like the old telephone booths for international calls, but in it was a person talking to someone, but not on the phone, but through a small television screen. The person was on the phone, but there was a screen in front of him where he could see the person he was talking to. I was surprised, but I accepted it as normal because I had never seen anything like that before. Often when I was in the hospital, I thought it was wonderful to be able to talk like this on the phone but still see faces. I talked about it many times at the time and was always surprised that people would look at me with disbelief and stone faces when I talked about it. Why are they surprised? I've definitely seen it. I thought it was normal, but over time I realized that it just couldn't happen. Eventually, when I visited the same clinic again, I realized that nothing had changed there. But that booth where I had seen the conversation through the television was no longer there. The usual corridor remained, and what I had seen no longer existed. In the morning, I take out my foundation, eye pencil, lipstick, and other products from my makeup bag, use them, and then put them back in my makeup bag. This all happens on a flat surface. And when it comes to the mascara, I can't find it. I slap my hand over the surface, swipe, 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 but no mascara. I start to get angry, realizing I might be late for work, and I get nervous. I get distracted for a second, and when I return to the cosmetic bag, the mascara is already there, lying alone. Miracles, real miracles. It was as if someone had quietly returned it to me. When I was 18 years old, I was returning from the sea with a friend, and we passed through a recreation center where an artist who creates portraits met us. He calls out to me with the words, "Girl, take your portrait, it's ready." My friend and I approach and see that the picture depicts me, but I am not a copy. I replied to the artist, "I am sorry, but I didn't pose, and I don't know who you painted." And he replied, "Tonight you and your mother came here and asked to paint a portrait. You said that you were resting at this base and that tomorrow you would take the portrait." I felt uncomfortable because it was me in the painting, but I certainly didn't pose. We apologized and left the place. My aunt, who was a very young woman then, suddenly fell seriously ill. She found herself in a difficult life situation. All her relatives had died in the war, and she was left all alone. She was hospitalized for a long time. Then she was sent to a sanatorium, but her health did not improve. Doctors could not make an accurate diagnosis. Her aunt was getting weaker day by day. She almost stopped eating because she completely lost her appetite. Her friends even managed to buy a mourning outfit for her because the situation seemed so hopeless. One day, when she was walking down the street, barely able to move her legs from weakness, she suddenly noticed an old grandmother. This old woman approached her and said, "Don't be afraid, everything will be all right." The aunt turned around to thank the stranger, but the grandmother was nowhere to be seen. However, it was after this strange incident that her recovery began. Her appetite returned. Her strength began to gradually recover. As a result, my aunt lived a long life, the whole 92 years. In the summer of 2023, this mysterious incident happened. After a heavy rain, I was sitting by the window at work, watching nature come to life after the downpour. Suddenly, the guard dogs barked, attracting my attention. It was exactly 1:30 p.m. in the afternoon. I looked out the window and saw a man walking through the grounds. He was wearing a long hooded cloak, the kind worn during the Great Patriotic War. His face was hidden by a deep hood, so it was impossible to see his features. The area around the building was enclosed by a 2-meter fence, so the appearance of a stranger seemed very unusual. I decided to find out who this person was immediately. I quickly got up from the table, took 3 steps, and opened the door. When I stepped outside, it turned out that there was no one on the premises. The man seemed to have vanished into thin air. I ran all over the grounds trying to find some clue, but in vain. No one else appeared, and no trace of his presence could be found. This episode left me confused. What was it? Could it be a play of the imagination? Or some inexplicable phenomenon? The question remained unanswered, and every time I think back to that day, I wonder, is it possible that someone can disappear literally before one's eyes? The day after my father's funeral, I went to work as usual. I live near the city of Grozny, in a small village. The buses run strictly according to schedule, but that day I was a little late and realized that I might be late. I had to walk about 1.5 kilometers to the nearest bus stop, where buses often pass by. It was a long walk, and to brighten the wait, I turned on YouTube on my phone and started listening through headphones. It had been 1.5 years since we had seen my father off on his last journey. At that point, I thought about experimenting with otherworldly forces and decided to try something unusual. I paused the clip and said out loud, "Batya, if you can hear me, if you are somewhere near me, give me a sign." Then I thought about what that sign might be. To hear my own name, Ivan, seemed to me too incredible. Then I wished someone would offer me a ride to the bus stop, and just a few seconds after my request, a klaxon sounded. The driver of the car stopped and offered me a seat in the car. I was in mild shock but agreed. As we pulled up to the intersection, I saw that my bus had already left. It looked like I was definitely going to be late for work. But as I approached the stop, another car pulled up sharply in front of me, and the driver gestured for me to get in. I was amazed at this coincidence. These events made me wonder, Was it really just a coincidence? Or had my father found a way to respond to my request? That evening, I shared my story with my wife. She suggested that it could have been a mere coincidence because Friday is considered a sacred day among Chechens, and many people try to do good deeds. But why were these good deeds happening at the very moment when I was mentally turning to my father? I was overcome with doubts. After I got out of the second car, I had about 2 more kilometers to walk to work. I walked through the park, still under the strong impression of what had happened. My mind was filled with thoughts of how complex and amazing the world we live in is. Everything that had happened seemed like a dream. And then I noticed a man in his 50s, whom I had seen earlier in the same place at the same time, when I was on my way to work. This man remembered me by his unusual gait. He walked leaning forward, keeping his back straight, reminding me of a character from a movie. Our eyes met, and I continued my phone conversation with my wife. After only 20 seconds, I ended the call and saw the same man walk past me again, repeating the same walking pattern. We exchanged glances again, and I felt my hair stand up on end. To be in this place again, this man would have had to run a great distance in a circle the diameter of a soccer field, and at an incredible speed. There was a long fountain and flower beds between our paths, so it was physically impossible. It was as if the man had teleported. This event finally convinced me that things happen in our world that are difficult to explain logically.